Martell Holt's decision to speak out did not come from a place of confidence or triumph. It came from a place of pressure, regret, and a deep need to control the narrative one last time. When people claim that Martell exposed Melody Sherry or even implicated Harper, the truth is more complicated. What happened was not a revelation of hidden secrets, but an attempt to shift attention away from his own past by reopening doors that were never fully closed. This was not a sudden act. It was the culmination of years of unresolved pain, public judgment, and personal mistakes that seemed to follow him no matter where he went. The story we saw on television is only a fraction of the emotional complexity behind it. At the heart of this story are three individuals, each processing the past in very different ways. Melody Sherry is not simply a figure from a reality show. She is a woman who rebuilt her life after a very public and painful divorce. For years, viewers witnessed her patience, her hope, and her willingness to forgive, but they also watched her grow quiet, slowly and deliberately. That quietness was never a sign of weakness, it was a mechanism for survival. In the aftermath of betrayal and public scrutiny, Melody learned that she did not need to explain herself to anyone. She chose to focus on building a life defined not by the opinions of others, but by her own actions. She grew her brand, nurtured her children, and created boundaries that protected her from the relentless gaze of the public. Each success, each small victory came with scars that never fully healed, and with every step forward, she was forced to confront the remnants of a past that had been both intimate and humiliating. Melody's journey shows that true strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, deliberate, and measured. It is the ability to continue even when the world has turned against you or judged you harshly. And that strength would soon be tested once again when the reunion invitation from the OWN network arrived. For Melody, receiving the reunion invitation was not just another opportunity to appear on television. It was a reminder of the very chapters she had fought to leave behind. Facing Martell again meant confronting a version of herself that had once placed trust in broken promises. She knew that stepping back into that space could reopen wounds that she had spent years carefully closing. Yet she also understood that sometimes confronting the past is the only way to finally move beyond it. For Martell, however, the invitation represented something very different. He saw the reunion as a chance for redemption, but not in the quiet, personal sense that Melody understood. He believed that by speaking publicly, sharing his emotions, and showing vulnerability, he could reframe how the world saw him. What he failed to realize, though, is that words alone cannot undo patterns. Apologies without accountability are fleeting, and public declarations cannot erase the impact of past actions. The contrast between them could not have been more stark. Melody approached the reunion with caution, with intention. Martell approached it with hope, but also with a degree of desperation that clouded his judgment. Arian Curry, who had been largely silent for years, entered the reunion with her own unresolved emotions. Social media, which had once been her platform to express pain, had gone quiet. Yet staying silent indefinitely was no longer an option. She had her own regrets, her own experiences of betrayal, and her own perspective on a story that had been spun by others for public consumption. Stepping into the reunion meant subjecting herself to judgment from every angle, but she understood that if she stayed away, others would continue to define her narrative. Her decision to participate was driven not by a desire for attention, but by a fear of being erased, misrepresented, or misunderstood. She carried herself with trepidation, aware that the weight of history in that room was heavy and unavoidable. All three of them were walking into a space charged with emotion, history, and unresolved tension. There were no smiles, no warm greetings, only the invisible weight of years of disappointment, regret, and pain hung in the air. When the reunion began, the differences between Melody and Martell were immediately apparent. Melody's presence was calm, measured, and intentional. She did not come to attack or defend, she came as someone who had already accepted her reality. Martell, by contrast, appeared restless and uncomfortable. His body language betrayed his insecurity despite the confidence he hoped to project. Early questions seemed simple, but the answers revealed deep emotional truths. When Melody admitted she felt nothing looking at Martell, it struck him harder than anger ever could. Indifference, often the final stage of emotional healing, demonstrated that she had already processed the pain and moved forward. Martell, however, was still attempting to catch up, still searching for closure she had already achieved.
Arian's contributions were equally complex. Her words carried honesty, yet also subtle deflections, revealing a person still navigating her own understanding of her role in a painful narrative. Melody responded with firmness, clarity, and restraint. She neither raised her voice nor engaged in petty arguments. Her control in the room demonstrated growth and self-awareness, a stark contrast to Martell's visible struggle to be seen and understood without fully acknowledging the harm he caused. The reunion quickly became less about airing grievances and more about confronting the messy reality of accountability. As the conversation progressed, emotions surfaced in ways that were raw, authentic, and unavoidable. Tears were shed, not for dramatic effect, but as a release of years of bottled-up regret. Melody expressed sorrow for the time she spent silencing herself, for allowing others to define her, and for moments when she doubted her own worth. Arian admitted regret for trusting promises that were broken and for allowing herself to be caught in the crossfire of others' choices. Martell confessed to prioritizing pride over love, recognizing how his actions contributed to the pain experienced by those around him. These admissions were significant, but they came later than they should have, illustrating the slow and often painful path to accountability. After the reunion aired, reactions were immediate and intense. Social media divided into factions. Some viewers believed Martell was finally being honest, while others felt he was attempting to rewrite history. Melody emerged as a symbol of quiet strength, resonating with women who understood the power of restraint and the wisdom of choosing peace over validation. Martell, however, found himself navigating a confusing mix of praise and criticism, leaving him unsettled rather than relieved. In response to public reaction, Martell went live on Instagram, claiming there were truths that never made it to television. He suggested that not everything was his fault, and implied that others had roles behind the scenes. Many called this moment the exposure, but without concrete evidence, these statements felt less like clarification and more like accusation. Instead of clearing his name, Martell reopened emotional wounds, sparking doubt and speculation that extended far beyond the original conflict. Melody chose peace. Her decision not to engage was not passive, it was deliberate. She understood that arguing for perception or defending herself would only fuel chaos, not restore peace. The mention of Harper's name introduced another layer of tension. Once a respected public figure, being pulled into rumors or insinuations, even indirectly, carries real consequences. Public words can leave lasting damage, even as intentions are unclear. Martell's attempt to speak his truth without fully considering its broader impact demonstrated the challenges of navigating personal narratives in a public forum. Arian's reflection, meanwhile, shifted inward. She began to focus on understanding her own choices and experiences, moving away from the noise of external judgment and toward genuine personal growth. The reunion, the live sessions, and the media coverage sparked public debate, yet little of this contributed to real healing. The story became about sides, Team Melody versus Team Martell, rather than about accountability, growth, or emotional recovery. Melody's decision to step away from reality television, refusing follow-up specials or continued public exposure, was a profound assertion of control over her life. By choosing real life over ratings, she reclaimed her narrative. Arian found solace in writing, using words as a tool for self-understanding rather than as ammunition in a public debate. Martell, for his part, engaged in community work and self-reflection, but the path to consistent accountability remained challenging. The release of unseen footage looms like a question mark over everything. Will it bring clarity or will it reignite conflict? Viewers wait, but those involved have already paid the emotional cost. Exposure without accountability rarely leads to closure, and healing without boundaries is fragile. Melody chose peace. Arian chose reflection. Martell is still learning. Their choices off-camera now define their paths far more than any televised moment ever could.
Her hands trembled at the words, reunion, Martell, Arian. The cup of tea slipped from her fingers and crashed to the floor, unnoticed. This email was not simply a show, it was a test, a doorway to a past that had shaped her, wounded her, and forced her to grow. Tonight, the past was calling her back, demanding she face it once more. Thousands of miles away, Martell Holt stood outside his old home, staring at the fallen yellow leaves scattered across the courtyard. In his hand, he held an old business card, Holt & Holt, Builders, Building Futures. Once, this name had been more than a card. It had been an identity, a promise of who he was and what he represented. Fame, wealth, respect, a sense of purpose, all of it had fallen away, leaving silence in its wake. It was a silence that came with the realization that life, once brimming with control and recognition, had moved on without him. Martell's daughter peeked from behind the doorway, her small face etched with concern. "Daddy, are you okay?" she asked softly. Martell offered a faint, artificial smile. "Yes, son, just thinking," he replied, though he knew the words were hollow. The walls of his home, which once echoed with laughter and pride, now pressed in on him with the weight of unspoken regrets. Later that night, staring at the ceiling, he whispered into the quiet, "If I could go back, would I change everything?" Silence answered, heavy and uncompromising. "We'd like you to appear on the reunion special." For a fleeting moment, pride ignited within him. Perhaps this was the opportunity to show the world and himself that he had changed, that he had learned. Yet even as he imagined redemption, he did not understand the most crucial truth. Time had changed more than he had. People, memories, and hearts are never as they once were, and some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again. Meanwhile, in a quiet street, Arian Curry sat across from her son, watching him play. Her face was calm, her eyes tired, carrying the exhaustion of years spent explaining, defending, and justifying herself to the world. She had once lived in constant communication with social media, speaking daily in defense of her choices, but now her accounts were silent, her voice exhausted. The world demanded explanation. Now she sought freedom. Freedom from expectation, from judgment, from the relentless pursuit of understanding from those who would never truly know her story. And yet, even in this quiet, her phone buzzed with the same message as Melody and Martell. "We're doing a reunion. Your perspective matters." Arian hesitated, the impulse to refuse immediate, but she looked in the mirror and spoke a hard truth to herself. "If I don't tell my story, someone else will." That moment crystallized her decision, a resolve forged not from pride, but from the necessity of reclaiming her narrative. And so it was that 3 lives, separated by distance and experience, were beginning to move toward the same inevitable convergence. Melody, Martell, and Arian, 3 individuals whose pasts had been tangled together in heartbreak, regret, and misunderstanding, were now heading toward the same studio, each carrying the weight of memory, expectation, and the desire for closure. In the ON Network office, producer Henderson gathered his team. "This show will make history," he said. "But remember, our job is to show the truth, not just the drama. The cameras, the lights, the technical precision of the studio, all of it would be the backdrop to the most personal and intimate confrontation each of them had ever faced." "I don't know if I'll ever see him again," Melody whispered, tears threatening to fall. Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. "Daughter, you faced brokenness before. Why not today? You are not weak. You are a sign of healing." Melody smiled, a small, quiet smile, wiping away the tears. That night, she wrote in her diary, "Tomorrow I will face my past, but this time I will not tremble. I will glow." It was a promise to herself, a declaration of resilience that she hoped would carry her through the inevitable confrontation. Martell, however, could not sleep. Every moment was consumed by memory. Melody's voice, the laughter of their children, the silence she had carved around herself. He pulled out an old video of happier times, the two of them laughing together on a television show. "Look at us, how happy we were," he murmured to the reflection in the screen, as though it could answer his unspoken questions. In the mirror, he sighed, confronting a truth he had long avoided. "I'm not the man I used to be, but will she believe it?" Arian sat beside her sleeping son, opening her diary. "I'm going on this show not because I want fame, but because I won't run from the truth anymore." She pulled out her old handbag, the same one from the day she first met Martell, and carried it to the fire pit outside. Watching it burn, she felt the weight of the past melt away, leaving space for clarity, for determination, for the difficult courage that tomorrow demanded. As the sun rose over Atlanta, the first light glimmered on the city in a way that seemed almost purposeful, signaling the convergence of these three lives. Planes, cars, trains, all carried them toward the same destination, the OWN Network studio. Within hours, three stories that had unfolded separately for years would intersect, bringing past mistakes, lingering pain, and the possibility of reconciliation to the forefront. Producer Henderson adjusted his headset, taking a slow, measured breath. "Lights on, cameras ready. Let's make history." Outside, the media crowded the entrances, microphones and flashes poised to capture every movement, every expression. Inside, the tension was palpable. Silence hung in the air like a living thing, heavy with anticipation and unspoken emotion. Martell arrived first, clad in a navy blue suit, the seriousness on his face tempered by exhaustion in his eyes. Standing before a mirror, he stared at his reflection, palms damped with sweat, heart racing with both fear and pride. "I'm ready," he whispered, though deep down he knew that no preparation could truly fortify him against the confrontation that awaited. The door opened and Melody entered. Her white dress caught the studio lights, softening her features while amplifying the quiet authority in her presence. She moved without fanfare, sat with deliberate poise, and let her silence speak. The staff, for a moment, seemed to breathe less, as if the room itself had paused to recognize the gravity of her presence. Moments later, Arian entered. Black dress, hair tied, a mixture of anger, fear, and regret flickering across her face. Her eyes met Melody's briefly before she looked away, aware that this moment was both confrontation and liberation, punishment and opportunity for truth. Welcome to the most awaited moment, the reunion of truth. Three faces across a table, years of silence, thousands of unspoken sentences. The first question, simple in words yet seismic in impact. Melody, when you look at Martell today, what do you feel? Nothing. The room shifted. Nothingness, perhaps the most powerful emotion, more piercing than anger, more decisive than forgiveness. Martell's face betrayed the tremor of regret, the ache of loss, the longing for a response that would never come. Arian's turn came. "Do you feel misunderstood?" asked the host. "Misunderstood? Maybe not," she said quietly. "I was wrong, but I wasn't the only one." Melody's gaze pierced her, reminding her that promises once broken turn dreams into torment. Martell tried to speak. "You treat me like I'm the devil. You don't know what I've lost," he exclaimed. Melody's voice cut through with clarity. "You didn't lose, you broke. We just stopped trying to convince you." Tears welled quietly. Silence enveloped the room. The producer whispered, "Keep rolling. This is the truth." Melody, "The day I first stifled my voice." Arian, "The day I believed someone else's promise." Martell, "The day I chose pride over love." Tears, raw and unfiltered, exposed truths that no makeup or careful phrasing could hide. This was not performance, it was life, acknowledged and recognized in front of millions, yet intensely private in the depth of its honesty. Arian whispered, "Perhaps you should apologize to yourself, Martell. We've both started our lives again." Martell remained silent, staring at the sky outside, seeking answers in the clouds. That night, rain tapped softly against the studio roof, a quiet acknowledgement that this story was far from over. The wounds of the past had begun to surface, but healing remained a journey, not a conclusion. This story is not just about a marriage, a reunion, or a reality show. It is about identity, choices, and the human capacity for growth. It is about who we become when love fails, who we choose to be when the world is watching, and who we are when the noise finally fades. Melody's silence is not avoidance, it is self-respect. Arian's reflection is not manipulation, it is growth. Martell's journey reminds us that being human involves acknowledging mistakes, accepting consequences, and understanding that words alone cannot rewrite the past. In the end, the most powerful truth is this: the real story does not belong to the audience, it belongs to those who lived it. Closure does not always look loud, and redemption is not announced, it is lived quietly, consistently, and with intention. When the cameras turn off, the choices we make define our lives far more than any public opinion ever could. Melody chose peace. Arian chose reflection. Martell is still choosing. Exposure, revelations, and social media noise cannot replace real healing. Sometimes the most courageous act is to step back, set boundaries, and reclaim your life. This story may continue in public discourse, but the truth, the real truth, resides in the actions of those who lived it. And sometimes that truth is simply choosing peace over proving a point.